Good morning. I'm Dr. DeRionne Pollard, president of Montgomery College, and I am so excited today to be having another one of our Facebook Live conversations with one of my favorite people in Montgomery County. I'm a little biased in that space. We have Councilmember Craig Rice, who's here with us today. Not only is Craig Rice on the council, has been there for several years, he also chairs the Education and Culture Committee, which is responsible for many of the decisions, budget, and policy issues as it relates to Montgomery College and education in general in the county. And he's joining us today here in our engineering design lab on the Montgomery College campus. You may or may not know this, that Montgomery College has the largest engineering education transfer program in the country, where we have hundreds of students enrolled who will go to institutions all across this country to study engineering. And we're in this space today because we're going to have a very thoughtful conversation about workforce and economic development. But this particular lab is quite fun. We'll see some of the gadgets behind us. This is where people actually come to design and learn how to fix and create things that will affect our world significantly. Automotive industry, airline industry, microchip industries, they're all affected by the designs that are created in labs just like this state-of-the-art facility that's here on our Rockville campus. If you haven't been to this campus before or on the 4th floor of our Science Center, please come up and visit. I'm thoroughly convinced, had I had this space when I was an undergraduate, I may have double majored in English and engineering. Thoroughly convinced of that. That being said, we thought this was a perfect place to have a conversation with Councilmember Rice, because this type of lab and the work that's done here, I think, is really representative of some of the economic and workforce development issues that we're seeing emerge. And at the college right now, we've been spending a lot of time over the last year talking about the nature of work, how it's evolving, how it is changing, and more importantly, how do we at the college prepare not only our employees, but our students for this work that they're going to be going into. So one of the things I like to start off with, if you think about the nature of work and how technology is impacting that, whether it be clean labs, robots that are doing phenomenal things in spaces, what are your insights on the impact of technology in the workplace and its impact on talent development in our county?
Well, I'll try and use an example, Dr. Pollard, of something that we just saw in Montgomery County that was so important to us, which is our bid to have Amazon come here. And while it's interesting that they looked at the overall economics, they looked at housing, they looked at transportation, all the things that are important when a company is considering locating to a place, one of the things they talked about first and foremost was about our tech talent pipeline and making sure that we were growing a number of folks who would be able to support the industry as a whole when it comes to what it is that they're doing. And when you think about what Amazon is on the forefront of when it comes to delivery services, and we always talk about the fact of CDL licenses and making sure that drivers are out there and that we have the vehicles, but the reality is that the drone technology that's out there was something that Amazon was looking at for any of the places that they were looking at going to locate. And so they had actually reached out to one of our air parks out in Laytonsville, and it asked them about the drone technology that they were working on. And that was a key tenet of the analysis that they gave that actually landed us in the top 20 for Amazon, was solely based on that drone technology work that's being done at that air park. And so those are the kinds of things that we're seeing. But in reality, just think about it for the everyday person. When you go in and get your car worked on right now, what happens? That mechanic is actually hooking your car up to a computer. It's very interesting. I just had a crazy story that happened this past weekend to where I was actually out at a ski resort and the valet lost my keys. Lost them in the snow. It was kind of crazy. But the reality is that the car remained running. The key fob was just used to start the vehicle, but after that, the vehicle continues to run on its own. It's just interesting that technology has taken over in so many ways in terms of the things that we think about, in terms of that we take for granted. And all of those are now incorporated in terms of training the workforce of tomorrow. It really is something to where you're going to have to be able to program and code. Because programming goes into everything from the mobile devices that we have all the way out to your thermostat. My thermostat at my house is linked to Carrier National, and so it automatically gives feedback and updates in terms of analysis of how we're using our heating and recommends to us via email how you can better control heating to save money and also be more energy efficient. These are the things that I think that a lot of people are forgetting about when it comes to what tomorrow's going to look like and what those career pathways are going to be. And so we really need to start training all of our students in labs like this to make sure that everybody has experience when it comes to technology because it's going to be incorporated in every single part of our lives.
I love that point you make because what's really important is that we used to think of technology as this thing that people specialized in and some people did it and some people didn't. The reality is you're describing both in everyday life but also in life and any career you're going into, technology has impacted and will only impact it more in the home, whether it be your air conditioning, your alarm system, your refrigerator.
That's right.
You know, mine starts to tell me it needs something. I'm like, how do you know you need this? It knows it needs it. So there are different things that we, everyday life, let alone if you want to go into the healthcare industry, you want to become a teacher, you want to do anything, technology is a part of the work that you have to do all the time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's one of those where, again, so we, from pre-K to J, always want to make sure from that pre-K to jobs, making sure that we're ensuring that folks have had that experience, that our students have really started to get that. And we understand that with some of the gaps that we're seeing in our schools, that part of it is that technology gap that exists, and it's that access. And so having a college like yours that really wants to make sure that for everyone, that we're focused on equity and giving them the experiences like this lab, that we know that a lot of people won't get the chance to have in their own schools and in their own neighborhoods, in their own homes, is transformational. It truly is.
So that's two questions. I'm gonna go off script because you spoke to my spirit on something. This idea of making sure that we leave no one behind.
Yes.
And you and I have talked a lot about this idea that, you know, we can have technology can be this barrier that some get it and some don't, or institutions like mine, county government and others can work together to make sure that technology is not used as a barrier, but it's something to bring people together. So I think a lot about that. Do you have thoughts? I know you have thoughts. So we've talked about that.
Absolutely. And I'll use myself as an example. Look, I'm the son of a woman who grew up in rural South Carolina, one of 14 brothers and sisters. And so when they came to Montgomery County, I was fortunate enough to be a part of the county's first magnet program focused on math, science, and computer science. And so I was lucky enough to be able to learn how to code in Logo on an Apple IIe computer way back in the day. I'm dating myself a bit. But it's one of those things where, again, those were the kinds of things that were afforded to me. And so it was kind of a no-brainer that I then went off to school when I graduated, majoring in aerospace engineering, going to the University of Illinois, and also wanting to be a fighter pilot enrolled in Naval ROTC. These are the kinds of things that happen when you're afforded access. Everyone can excel. Everyone can be successful if they're given those opportunities. Now, they may take it to different levels. There's certainly that. But the reality is that access is the thing that is the barrier. And so by breaking those barriers, by ensuring that just because you may not go to a four-year institution like MIT, doesn't mean that we still can't have these same kinds of equipment, the same things that MIT is learning and working on right here in this county, right here for people at a two-year institution, and do the exact same thing. And oh, by the way, at the same time, make sure that they don't have as much college debt as they would in other sorts of situations.
So we actually have a question that's come in.
Oh, excellent.
And are there coding classes at MC for the general public, and how about for teens? Yes, we do have both of those. I know you know a little bit about one. I'll let you talk about it. What do you want to talk about? Montgomery County Can Code?
So I'll talk about Montgomery Can Code, which is a great collaborative between us and Apple. And Apple's been incredibly supportive, working with Montgomery College, as well as our Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation and Montgomery County Public Schools, bringing middle schoolers to be able to learn how to code for the first time ever. We bring kids in throughout the summer. We did 300 last year. We're actually ramping up this program significantly, over threefold, to now 1,000 kids for this upcoming summer. And they're going to learn how to make apps. And this is great with using Swift coding. And so it's really exciting. We really are, and Apple is really excited about this as well, because it certainly is a great collaborative partnership. And so we're going to continue to do more. We've already got the money worked into the budget for this year for that. And so we're really excited. It's really going to be awesome.
So in addition to those middle schoolers, going to your question that you posed, that program is so exciting for us. But we also recognize that there are folks who want to get jobs right now. So through our Workforce and Continuing Education unit of the college, we offer courses in Swift coding and other coding formats as well. So please, if you go to our website, go to Workforce and Continuing Education, you will see a listing there of programming courses that we offer in that space. Oh, another one. How about this? Tracy says, what are we doing to enhance STEM education in primary school so the opportunities Councilmember Rice have are accessible to all students? Does a college have a role to play in this type of work? Great question.
That's a great question. Well, let me just say that, yes, we're expanding STEM opportunities for all. What we're doing is that magnet program that I talked about that I was a part of was exclusive. There was one in the county. What we've said is we need to provide this opportunity for all kids. You shouldn't have to test into it because not everyone tests well, but still has the capacity and the passion to get into these fields. And so we need to be bringing this to all of our kids. And so one of the things that we're really focused on is making sure that, again, we're providing these opportunities. So we're growing these programs throughout. My daughter, who goes to Northwest High School, has a program that's a non-magnet school. It's a non-IB school, but they have intensive programs, one around biotech, that's absolutely phenomenal. And these are the kinds of things that, again, we want to bring to all kids. We have drone programs. We have aerospace programs. We have more medical programs. We have all different kinds of, all under the auspices of STEM that we're continuing to expand to all kids, and we're bringing it down. We started off with high schools, we're working to middle schools, and then we're going to work to elementary schools. And some of our elementary schools already have significant STEM programs, and we're continuing to grow those. Part of the last thing I'll say is that the Kerwin Commission that I served on for the last 3 years that dealt with recommendations on how to change our fundamental education system in the state of Maryland as a whole has talked about this, has talked about the need for us to make sure that we're tying workforce development and education together, making us college and career ready, making sure that we have more options that streamline the pathway for folks to either go straight to college or go straight to jobs. And so because of that, it will be imperative for us to make sure that we're training our kids earlier to make sure that if they have identified pathways that they want to go in, that we give them the supports necessary to get there.
And I think this is why the college does have a very important role in this, I think in two areas. One is that in terms of our own programming, through dual credit and through middle college programs with MCPS, we're tightly coupled in that space. We're delivering those programs throughout the county and providing college level experience to high school students who have the ability to thrive and have access to this. This is something that I think is groundbreaking. We will have and have had students graduate from Montgomery College with their associate's degree a week usually before they complete their high school diploma. So there's something to be said about that. We also have an abundance of summer programming we do with camps, as we talked about earlier. Here's the other thing that our job is, our job is to help prepare the teachers who are going to step into those spaces. So we are working deeply with MCPS in this role, where we're actually looking at how do we take paraprofessionals, help them move into teaching roles, teachers who are already there, how do we provide them with the additional training and skills. So I think that what you will see in Montgomery County is an ecosystem, I think, deeply committed to living our values out loud about access, about education, and more importantly, making sure that no one gets left behind. So what are employers telling you, though? This is what I'm very interested in. When we talk about economic development, workforce development, as an educational provider, I know I have an opinion. As a leader in county government, I know you have an opinion. But what are employers telling you about what they see the needs to be as it relates to that tech talent pipeline?
It's amazing because what we're now hearing is the same thing from both technology companies and from companies that are not considered to be technology companies about what they want. They want well-rounded individuals. Before, it used to be very targeted in terms of what it is that they needed, but the reality is that because everything has blended together, as we were discussing before, when it comes to technology, we need to have folks who are lawyers who also know about all of the technology that's involved, not just in terms of handling the day-to-day operations of the office and what goes on there, but also when it comes to the cases themselves, understanding how these things work and how, because tech is so ingrained in all of our lives that it's something where you just need to have that baseline knowledge that is there. And then when you get into some of those fields that are actually more associated with STEM, folks are looking for that baseline of information that's a little bit higher than what you would see from everything else. So again, looking at having some generic coding, having the ability to say, well, can we design an app that will be able to make it easier for our experience? I mean, think about it. Geico, an insurance company, right, has one of the best apps nationwide. They focus on insurance. Their job is to insure people and to pay out for experiences that they have and minimize risk. But they also have one of the best apps that gives a user experience that allows for you to do all the things that you need to There are reasons why those things are happening. And so now everybody is in this competitive space about what app is going to be most responsive. It's the reason why it's very interesting. Every time you use an app, folks want you to rate them. And I encourage everybody to rate them and tell them so that they can make their apps better, because it's the experience. But it is very interesting that that is the movement that everyone's going into.
So you talk about technology, and technology fluency is a certain amount of a foundational skill. Here, I got a couple of degrees in English, so I'm gonna have to put this out here, because one of the things, it drives me crazy. I hear people focus so much on the technology skills, but they aren't talking about what I call these other foundational power skills. Yes. The ability to communicate, interpersonal relationships, the ability to be able to understand how to navigate and use critical thinking to solve problems. Are employers also talking about that, and your thoughts about how we create a balanced employee who's able to walk into a space and have those technology skills, but also have those foundational power skills?
I will push back that the only way that you have good technology skills is if you have those other good skills as well. They go hand in hand. Yes. For you to have critical thinking and be able to process, for you to be able to make sure that this app is functional, you have to talk to people. You have to make sure that you're understanding what their needs are and communicate with them, right? You have to analyze and understand what's going to work best for the human, for the person. It's not just about how the app works and that coding of zeros and ones, but it's what's behind it in terms of the reaction that you're going to get from that person who's using it. And those user experiences tie into it as well as just the language itself. If you don't communicate well as to what your app does and also walk them through those steps, the person's not going to be able to use the app effectively. And so it all ties in together. There is no one without the other. I mean, it really is one of those in which I think for a long time we did a disservice to ourselves when we separated technology and said, well, technology is its own separate skill, when in reality, you have to have both. I mean, you're talking to an original aerospace engineering major who ended up switching to computer science, and now here I am in politics. And the reason why is because that critical thinking that's necessary to be able to do that allows me, that evaluative criteria that's there, allows me, and that scientific background allows me to really use those kinds of skills to help me in terms of my decision making.
That's a great point, the idea of how your career trajectory has changed as a result of that. So here's a question I got from Donna. She says, some folks are concerned that becoming workforce ready means that you can't study more traditional liberal arts. I don't see them as mutually exclusive. Even liberal arts students benefit, in fact, liberal arts and workforce readiness courses when there's a combination, which you just spoke to. So I think, Donna, we anticipated that question. Yep. I think the other thing is that one of the things here, we have another one, Rebecca, who asked, speaking of employers, can Councilmember Rice talk about alternative credentials like badges for workforce skills? Yes. Does he think this should be a priority? Absolutely. Well, one of the concepts under the current commission recommendations is to make sure that when we're looking at college and career ready, that we're actually starting with certifications. And so if a person wants to become a cosmetologist, well, we need to start working towards those certifications, but not just in that, but also in some of the other flexibilities as well. So understanding business structure, understanding accounting, all of those kinds of things that go into it. Because if you're going to be good, you don't just have to have the skills in being a good hairstylist, but you also have to be able to manage the money effectively if you're going to start a business. And so from that perspective, and then you also have to worry about the technology piece because people are booking online and using apps to be able to book. And so you have to understand how to set that up and structure it in a certain way. It's all inclusive. And so it's absolutely that we need to make sure that we're giving folks the flexibility to be able to do all of those kinds of things. And so certainly when it comes to the badges perspective, when it comes to the levels of certification amongst all of the different career pathways, we're going to need to make sure that we continue to go in that realm. We've already done some of that. We have tons of students who are graduating with all different kinds of certifications. I know you know because a lot of them then come to Montgomery College to enhance upon what they've already got with MCPS. And we hear that from employers, that they're looking at badges as a way to demonstrate just-in-time education, things that don't require a degree or a certificate, but they are badges that speak to a competency or a skill set. So one of the questions that popped up next, I think, is an important one. What are we doing to prepare for Amazon coming to the region? You know, one of the things I know that you'll hear a lot in terms of your work with employers and talking about education, everything, lots of folks are thinking, okay, Amazon, maybe they didn't land in Montgomery County just yet, but we know that there's Amazons coming to the region, and all those companies that trail behind Amazon will be here. How do we get Montgomery County for that, ready for this? So
let me turn that on its head a little bit. I want to talk about something that's incredibly important to that, which is equity. Understanding that when we have these highly valuable jobs, we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to get them. And so from that perspective, really understanding about, and this is what the school system underwent, our Office of Legislative Oversight looked at our education system as a whole and found some areas where we're not doing what we need to in preparing our children for the future. So we've got to correct that first. Some of the Kerwin Commission recommendations will do that, and I know MCPS is working on some internal recommendations to be able to do that as well. So I want to put that out there because I think that's incredibly important for people to know, because what we don't want to do is leave folks who have already been left behind even farther behind when it comes to access to this great entity that is Amazon. Now, I will say this, when it comes to Amazon, there are so many layers that are underneath Amazon that I want folks to understand this is not just about tech. Amazon has a huge CPA, has huge HR, has huge all kind marketing. There's so many career pathways that are within Amazon that it's not just about having computer scientists in a building. And so from that perspective, I think we're doing a good job of already preparing folks for that. The reality is that our education system is one of the strongest in the nation. I think one of the strongest in the state. But the reality is this, is that we still have so much more to do when it comes to ensuring that we continue along that pathway of preparing them for these types of careers. And so when we heard from Amazon during our bid process about what it was that they were looking for, it again is creating that well-rounded student. That student who not only can master about understanding computer science, but also understand how to also interact with people. Long gone are the days where a person sits in a cubicle and programs. That's not the way it happens. You go to Google, you go to Apple, you go to Amazon, and you look at the collaborative spaces that they've built. It's very different from what you used to see and what you used to understand. And so it requires a different skill set from what we used to train our kids for. And so we're making those kinds of changes as well to make sure that folks understand this is a much more collaborative approach. So when it comes to those soft skills, when it comes to being able to communicate your ideas, write them down on paper and give them to a manager, it's not just about saying, boss, I programmed the code. Sell it to me. Sell it to me as to why this is incredibly important and we need to go in this direction versus the direction we've been going in. Those are the kinds of things that I think you'll see a lot more when it comes to the product that we're producing, which is this well-rounded student who comes out who's got the ability to master all of these different sectors.
So when you think about the economic and workforce, and I think that if you want to talk about economic development, you have to be talking about workforce development and that whole pathway as you described there. When you look into the future and you start thinking about Montgomery County, as someone who has grown up in Montgomery County, has led this county in many different areas, what do you think are some of the maybe your top 3 things that we've got to really address as we move forward when you think about economic and workforce development?
Well, I think having a robust Montgomery College is a key part of it. Right. And I'm not saying that just because I'm in front of you. Right. I mean, it really is a key component of this. But because what happens is you're able to target and able to quickly navigate in a direction of need. We've seen it when it came to our nursing shortage, your partnership with our hospital in Germantown, and being able to train our medical personnel for the future of tomorrow. And again, highlight that technology when it comes to biotech, when it comes to cyber. I mean, the list goes on and on to where Montgomery College has answered the clarion call of saying, we have a shortage. We have a shortage of people who can go into these career pathways right now. And so you're ramping up programs that are tremendous, and that's helping us get to where we need to be. What we also need to do is a better job of marketing ourselves. From an economic development perspective, and I was just having a conversation with our county executive the other day, it really is imperative for us to make sure that folks understand that we are a biotech sector. We are a cyber sector. I'm tired of hearing about Virginia and what Virginia does, when in reality, we've been doing it long before Virginia, and I still think better than Virginia. The reality is I don't see a community college like Montgomery College in Virginia. I don't see that. And that speaks to the commitment that we have here. And so from that perspective, I think that's one. And the other is to make sure that, again, when we're looking at workforce as a whole, we need to continue to bring workforce in and listen to what they're telling us and continue to change and mold because our success is based on their success. If our economic development isn't going well, you never see an area or a city or a county that does well as a result.
Very good. Okay. Oh, another question. See, I was going to do my popcorn round. I had some fun questions. Okay, another question. How do workers retool to add foundational tech skills to their skill set while maintaining employment? Are these skills, app design, coding, taught outside of traditional classroom? So two things, I think that's probably a question for me. One of the things that I know for sure about Montgomery College is we specialize in the non-traditional student, and that actually is our traditional student. Most of our students attend part-time, most of our students are working, many of our students have life outside of Montgomery College. So we spend a lot of time doing several things to respond to that. One, designing a schedule that's responsive, so we have day and evening courses as well as weekend online courses. So there should be an abundance of opportunity in those spaces. Secondly, we also look at our support services, making sure that they're there to help you say, when do you need to get to the library? You need a tutor, you need someone who can help coach you through those things. Those are the things that we spend an amount of time and energy as an organization, I think, being exceptional at. And the last thing I think is important, we're responsive. So when our business folks come to us and say, we need this, we can deliver them either in a credit or non-credit format. We can go into an employer space and deliver that class, or we can do it in one of our spaces here. We partner with lots of nonprofits in the community to deliver that, and sometimes actually going into nonprofit spaces to deliver classes. So I'd like to think that yes, there are some colleges that don't do that well. They don't recognize that the students are working, they have families, they have to commute, and we didn't even talk about traffic in Montgomery County. So we know that this is a reality. But what I do know for sure is that Montgomery College has a wide array of programs that allow students to be responsive and allow us to do what we can do best, meet students where they are to help them get to where they want to go. So my popcorn round, because I think I've got 2 or 3 minutes left, unless another question came up. Another question came, oh, I'm sorry, another question.
That's all right.
Okay, who's going to win the Super Bowl?
I would say Baltimore Ravens. Well, Lamar Jackson.
I set you up for that one, right? All right, here's another. Can we continue to import talent, or do we need to think more about leveraging MC and USG to help build homegrown talent?
Let me just say amen to that. Thank you, whoever that was who asked that question, because I'm on the board of advisors at USG, and I can't tell you about how this partnership between Montgomery College and USG is leading towards that. We have a brand new, beautiful building on USG's campus that's committed to that. You see the space that's here at Montgomery College that's committed to that. We continue to have beautiful buildings that do the same. The important thing is it's the commitment behind those buildings. It's the commitment of faculty and staff who continue to make sure that we're training our students for the jobs of tomorrow. That partnership is golden, something that's very unique to Montgomery County, and will certainly end up with success for many students who would not have it otherwise.
Very, very good. 2020, everybody came into resolutions and goals. Aspirations, intentions. And I prefer to say intentions. The goals are to, what are some of your intentions for 2020?
Well, I really want to focus on making sure that we do ultimately live out this spirit of pre-K to J. That we make sure that people understand we're committed to having folks that are gainfully and happily employed. The reality is that some people are happy with the jobs that they have, and that's perfectly fine. And it may mean that they end up struggling here in Montgomery County, but they've decided to make that a choice. But the reality is that I don't want that to be forced upon them. I want them to be able to make a choice to say if they want to do something different, if they feel as though they've reached the end and they want to go in a different direction when it comes to their career pathway, that they can do that easily and still be successful here in Montgomery County. I don't want kids to grow up here and not be able to live here. That's incredibly important. And so from that perspective, when it comes to focusing on affordable housing, which also means that you've got to be gainfully employed as well, these are the kinds of things. We shouldn't be thinking about importing talent for anything, whether it's electricians that we import from Ohio, or whether it's computer technicians that we may import from Northern Virginia. We have the ability to make it all happen here in-house. And we can do that in partnership with Montgomery College, with USG, and with MCPS and county government as a whole.
Wow, on that note, that was a mic drop right there. So in the effort of 2020, one of my personal intentions, I know yours as well, because we talk a lot about this, about fitness and wellness and health, okay? Steve Hull has a thing with me that every time we see each other, we do 10 squats, because he is all about the squat.
I love it.
All right, so I think we need to end this on some squats.
All right,
let's
do
some
it.
Squats, all right?
Just regular squats?
Just regular,
all right.
I got cute shoes on, just regular squats. Are you ready? All right, here we go.
Yep.
Oh, both of our knees are going.
I know, right?